Facebook owes Texas a massive settlement. It's July 30th, 2024, in these year headlines. Huge news this morning as Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has announced a landmark $1.4 billion settlement with Meta, formerly known as Facebook, after the company was accused of violating user privacy. Now, back in February of 2022, Paxton sued Meta for capturing and using the biometric data of millions of Texans without properly obtaining their informed consent in violation of Texas law. They were accused of storing millions of biometric identifiers, defined by statute as a retina or iris scan, fingerprint, voice print, or record of hand or face geometry, contained in photos and videos uploaded by users of the social media app. Paxton's office noted that this settlement is the largest ever obtained from an action by a single state and the largest privacy settlement secured by an attorney general. In comparison, a group of 40 states received a $390 million settlement from Google back in 2022 over the tech giant's location tracking practices. This obviously dwarfs that one. The lawsuit accused Meta of violating the state's Capture or Use of Biometric Identifiers Act, as well as the Deceptive Trade Practices Act. In 2011, Meta introduced a new feature called Tag Suggestions at the time, which was promoted as a tool to enhance the user experience by simplifying the process of tagging people in photographs. However, unbeknownst to most Texans, Meta employed facial recognition software on nearly every face in the photos uploaded to Facebook, created records of the facial geometry of those depicted. This feature was automatically activated for all users without an explanation of its functionality for over a decade. Now, as part of the settlement, Meta will pay the $1.4 billion to the state of Texas over 5 years. According to research from the University of Houston and Texas Southern University, most Texans support adopting school choice legislation. Of the just over 2,200 Texans polled by the Hobby School of Public Affairs, 65% support the adoption of legislation that would provide school vouchers to all parents in Texas, with 33% strongly supporting the legislation. Notably, minority groups from both parties back school choice at a higher rate than whites. According to the poll, the only respondents lacking a majority of support for school choice were white Democrats. Republican politicians advocating for school choice could further endear the party to minority voters in an election cycle that has seen high levels of support for a Republican presidential candidate among minority voters. While Donald Trump gains in popularity, teachers' unions have become increasingly unpopular since 2020 after they insisted on keeping kids out of schools. Simultaneously, parents were getting an up-close and personal look at the quality of education their children received at the time. The net result saw a record level of parents pulling their children from government schools. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick last week said that Speaker Dade Phelan, if he's reelected to the speakership, would fight against the passage of school choice legislation after Phelan refused to sign his name to a budget instruction memo to state agencies advising them on priorities.
What are the important things out there in Texas politics and Texas news that matter to you, and what can you do about it? That's what we want to bring you with the Luke Macias Show on a weekly basis for 20 to 30 minutes. That way you can get the information and go do something for the rest of your week. I look forward to coming to you every Wednesday.
Senator Ted Cruz has joined Marco Rubio and other colleagues in sending a letter to Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, urging him to heighten precautions along the U.S.-Canada border. Senators wrote to Mayorkas that the possibility of terrorists crossing the U.S.-Canada border is deeply concerning given the deep penetration of Gazan society by Hamas. It would be irresponsible for the U.S. to not take necessary heightened precautions when foreigners attempt to enter the United States. The letter was also signed by Tom Cotton, Mike Braun, Joni Ernst, and Josh Hawley. They addressed Canada's decision back in May to increase the number of Gazans allowed into the country. By temporarily offering temporary resident visas to Palestinians living in the Palestinian territories, Canada's foreign nationals become eligible to receive a refugee travel document to travel outside of the country. And the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services accepts refugee travel documents instead of a passport. Citing the Biden administration's lack of border enforcement, the senators pointed out that there were more than 233 suspected terrorist encounters at the northern border in fiscal year 2024, an increase from previous years. In addition to concerns at the northern border, we've previously reported that conditions at the southern border continue to be a major issue that motivates voters, a problem echoed in the U.S. House by its approval of a resolution last week condemning border czar and Vice President Kamala Harris's handling of the border crisis. For more of today's stories, go to TexasScorecard.com.